everything. What if I told you that financial freedom isn't about earning more? It's about mastering the art of keeping what you already have. Most people chase higher income, everything, yet remain trapped in the same cycle of stress, debt, and impulsive spending. Everything. True wealth begins the moment you stop leaking money on what doesn't matter and start directing it toward what does. Everything. This audiobook isn't just about saving. It's about reclaiming control, reshaping your habits, and rewriting your financial story. Because the moment you learn how to manage your money, everything, you realize you were never short on cash, only clarity. There comes a moment in every person's financial life when the numbers stop being just numbers and start becoming a mirror. Everything, a reflection of our habits, our fears, our desires, and our priorities. That moment, uncomfortable as it may be, is the wake-up call. Everything. It's the day you stop pretending that everything is fine and finally admit that something has to change. For most people, the wake-up call doesn't come as a single dramatic event. Everything. It's not a movie scene where the lights flicker and your bank balance flashes zero. No, it's quieter than that. It happens when your card gets declined for a small purchase. Everything. And you laugh it off, pretending it's just a bank glitch. It happens when you check your account after payday and wonder, everything. Where did it all go? Again. It happens when the joy of buying something new fades faster than ever, leaving behind that familiar mix of guilt and emptiness. Everything. If any of that feels familiar, don't worry. You're not alone. Almost everyone who's ever struggled with money has been there. I've been there. The truth is, everything. Overspending isn't a financial problem at first. It's an emotional one. We spend to escape. We spend to celebrate. We spend to feel worthy, or to fill silence. Everything. Or to distract ourselves from the quiet discomfort of what's really missing. Think about it. Everything. That coffee you buy every morning, even though you have one at home. It's not just about caffeine. It's about the ritual, the feeling of treating yourself before facing the day. Everything. That online order at midnight, it's not just about owning something new. It's about trying to replace a feeling that's gone missing. Everything. And the expensive night out when you knew you couldn't afford it. That wasn't about the food or the music. It was about belonging. Everything. The first step toward financial freedom isn't cutting your expenses. It's cutting through the lies you've been telling yourself. Everything. The lie that it's just a small purchase. The lie that I'll save later. The lie that I deserve this, when deep down you're buying comfort instead of creating peace. Everything. Facing your spending habits is like switching on a light in a room you've avoided cleaning. It's uncomfortable. It's messy. But once the light is on, everything, you can finally see what needs to be fixed. That's the moment of power, when awareness replaces avoidance. Because you can't change what you won't confront. Everything. Take a moment and imagine this. Every dollar you've ever spent has a story. Each one tells you something about who you are, what you value, and what you avoid. What if everything, instead of running from those stories, you started listening to them? What if, instead of judging yourself, you became curious? Everything. You might discover that your spending reveals your stress patterns. Maybe you splurge when you're anxious, or when you've had a long week. Everything. Maybe you spend to reward yourself after being good all month. Everything. Or maybe you overspend when you feel unseen, when buying something feels like proof that you exist in a world that moves too fast. When you start paying attention. Everything. You begin to see the emotional fingerprints all over your money. And that awareness, that simple act of seeing, is how everything begins to change. Everything. There's a story I often tell about a man named Adam. He wasn't reckless, but he was tired of working hard and having nothing to show for it. Every month he'd make promises. Everything. This time I'll save. This time I'll be smarter. And every month, the same pattern repeated. Then one day, while sitting at a cafe, everything. He checked his account and saw that his balance was lower than he thought. For the first time, instead of closing the app, he kept it open. He started scrolling through every expense, everything, every little purchase. And as he did, something shifted. The coffee runs, the impulsive dinners, the apps he forgot to cancel. It was all there. Everything. A digital diary of decisions made on autopilot. He said later that it wasn't the numbers that shocked him. It was what they represented. I realized, he said, everything. I wasn't just spending money. I was spending pieces of my peace, my security, my future. That's what the wake-up call feels like. Everything. It's the sting of realizing how much of your potential has been traded for temporary comfort. But right after that sting comes power. Because once you know, you can't unknow everything. Once you see the truth, you can start doing something about it. So let's make this personal. Take out your phone, open your banking app, and scroll through your last week of spending everything. Don't overthink, just look. Notice what emotions rise up: shame, guilt, surprise, whatever it is, sit with it. Those feelings are trying to teach you something. Everything, every transaction has an emotion behind it. Your job now is to decode it. Ask yourself, what was I feeling when I made that purchase? Was I hungry or bored or lonely? Everything. Did I buy this because I needed it or because I wanted to feel something? Awareness turns money from a mystery into a mirror. This is where the real transformation begins. Everything. Because once you see your patterns, you can change them. You start asking new questions. Instead of, can I afford this? You ask, everything. Does this align with who I want to become? Instead of, I deserve this, you start thinking, everything. I deserve peace more than another purchase. Saving money doesn't begin with budgeting apps or spreadsheets. It begins with honesty. You can't fix what you won't face. Everything. And that's why this chapter isn't about tactics. It's about truth. Because truth is the foundation of financial change. Without it, every budget fails. Every resolution fades. Everything, every goal collapses under the weight of old habits. Maybe for you, the wake-up call came when you couldn't pay a bill. Everything. Or maybe it's happening right now as you listen. Realizing that you've been chasing happiness with your wallet instead of your heart. Either way, this is your turning point. Everything. This is the moment you start taking your power back. Here's what that looks like in real life. You stop looking at your finances as punishment and start seeing them as feedback. Everything. You stop saying, I'm bad with money, and start saying, I'm learning to understand it. You stop hiding from your statements and start reviewing them with curiosity. Everything. Every small act of awareness builds confidence. The confidence that you can change your future one decision at a time. Imagine if 6 months from now, you could open your banking app and feel calm. Imagine if every purchase you made was intentional, every dollar had a purpose, and every saving goal felt achievable. Everything. That version of you isn't far away. It's just on the other side of awareness. When you wake up to your financial reality, something incredible happens. Everything. You begin to separate who you are from what you've done. You realize you're not your past mistakes, not your overdrafts, not your credit card debt. You're someone who's learning everything, growing, and finally seeing clearly. And clarity, that's worth more than any amount of money. The wake-up call doesn't demand perfection. It demands presence. Everything. It asks you to look at your finances not with shame, but with curiosity. Because money isn't the enemy, unconsciousness is. As you begin this journey, you'll notice something powerful. Everything. The urge to spend will start to lose its hold. You'll pause before buying. You'll ask yourself, do I really need this? Everything. Or am I trying to fix a feeling? That pause, that tiny gap between impulse and action, is where freedom lives. The truth is, no one saves money by accident. Everything. Saving is an act of awareness, not deprivation. It's about aligning your money with your values, not punishing yourself for your past. Everything. The wake-up call isn't meant to make you feel guilty. It's meant to make you feel alive. Because when you start paying attention, you reclaim control. Everything. You stop being the passenger in your financial story and start becoming the author. And that's the real power of facing the truth about your spending. Everything. It's not about numbers or budgets. It's about awakening. It's the shift from autopilot to awareness, from chaos to clarity, from guilt to growth. The wake-up call hurts for a moment. Everything. But it heals for a lifetime. Because once you've seen the truth, you can't go back to pretending. You can only move forward, eyes open, grounded, everything, and ready for the next chapter of your financial freedom. Have you ever wondered why sometimes you buy things you don't really need? Why you open your wallet or swipe your card? Everything. Even when a quiet voice inside says, you don't actually need this. We tell ourselves it's just a treat, a small indulgence, a reward after a long week. But often, everything, it's something deeper, a hidden emotional current pulling us toward the checkout line. Spending at its core is rarely just about money. It's about emotion, identity, everything, and the stories we tell ourselves to feel a certain way. Think about the last time you bought something impulsively. Maybe it was a pair of shoes, a new gadget, everything, or another takeaway coffee that you didn't plan on. You might have justified it with a thought like, everything, I deserve this, or "it's not that expensive." But beneath that small decision might have been boredom, stress, everything, or even loneliness. Emotions we rarely connect with our financial behavior. The truth is, every unnecessary purchase carries an emotional fingerprint. We spend not just to own everything, but to feel joy, relief, belonging, or control, even if only for a fleeting moment. That fleeting moment, however, is powerful. Everything. It's what marketers and brands understand deeply. The psychology of wanting. They don't sell products, they sell feelings. A luxury car isn't marketed as a vehicle, everything. It's sold as success. A designer bag isn't just a piece of leather, it's a badge of status. Even a cup of premium coffee promises more than caffeine. It promises comfort, identity, everything, and community. And once we start linking emotion to consumption, spending becomes less about logic and more about self-expression. This is why budgets often fail. Everything. People try to fix emotional spending with rational tools, spreadsheets, apps, and guilt. But money behavior doesn't start in the wallet, it starts in the mind. To change how you spend everything, you first need to understand what your spending represents. Each purchase is like a mirror reflecting what you value, fear, or crave. And until you see that clearly, everything, you'll keep chasing satisfaction in the wrong aisles. Let's pause for a moment and be honest. How many times have you bought something because it made you feel better? Everything. Maybe after an argument, you went shopping to distract yourself. Maybe you scrolled through online stores late at night because you were anxious. Everything. Or maybe you bought something expensive to impress someone. These actions are not signs of weakness. They're signs of being human. Everything. We live in a world designed to trigger desire. A constant stream of advertisements, influencers, and social media images reminding us of what we don't have. Every swipe, every scroll, everything. Every ad is crafted to make us feel just a little bit inadequate until we buy our way out of it. But awareness changes everything. Once you start seeing the emotional pattern, everything, you can interrupt it. You can ask yourself powerful questions before each purchase. What am I feeling right now? Am I buying this to solve a problem or to escape a feeling? Everything. When you slow down long enough to answer honestly, you create space. Space between the impulse and the action. And in that space lies freedom. Take the example of Sarah. Everything. A young professional who realized she was spending hundreds each month on things she didn't even remember buying. Clothes, gadgets, everything. Online subscriptions. All purchased in moments of boredom or stress. One day, she decided to start tracking not just what she spent, but why she spent it. Everything. She created a small note on her phone. Each time she made a purchase, she'd write how she felt right before it. After a few weeks, everything. She noticed a pattern. Most of her spending happened when she felt anxious or unproductive. Shopping had become her way to self-soothe. Once she recognized that, everything, she began replacing the behavior with healthier habits. Taking walks, journaling, calling a friend. Her spending didn't just drop, her emotional control grew stronger. Everything. This isn't about never buying anything again. It's about spending with awareness. There's a difference between intentional spending and emotional spending. Everything. Intentional spending is when you buy because it aligns with your values and goals. Like investing in a course that helps your career or buying food that nourishes your health. Everything. Emotional spending, on the other hand, is reactive. It's when you buy to change how you feel in the moment, often leaving behind guilt, clutter, and financial stress. Everything. To begin shifting from emotional to intentional spending, you must first understand the triggers. Some are obvious: stress, loneliness, frustration. Others are subtle: comparison, everything, fear of missing out, or the desire for approval. These emotions often hide beneath our daily routines. For instance, you might not think twice about ordering food delivery 3 times a week, everything. But behind that pattern might be exhaustion or the need for comfort after long workdays. By noticing these patterns, you gain the power to choose differently. Everything. Another layer to the psychology of spending lies in identity. People often buy not because they want the product, but because they want to be the kind of person who owns it. Everything. We use money to craft an image, to project competence, beauty, success, or happiness. This isn't inherently bad, it's part of being social beings. Everything. But when your self-worth becomes tied to what you own, spending turns into a cycle of validation. You buy to feel worthy, yet the feeling fades quickly, leading to the next purchase. Everything. The only real way out is to build identity from within, to anchor your confidence in who you are, not in what you have. A simple practice can help. Before you buy anything, pause and ask, everything, Who am I trying to be with this purchase? Sometimes, that question alone breaks the illusion. You realize you don't need to prove yourself through possessions, everything. True confidence doesn't need props. It grows from choices aligned with your values, not the opinions of others. Social pressure adds another layer to this web, everything. We live in a culture that celebrates consumption. Friends share their latest buys, influencers showcase luxury lifestyles, and society measures success in visible symbols. Cars, houses, everything, fashion experiences. Saying no to that current takes courage, but every time you resist the pull of comparison, you strengthen your independence, everything. You begin to realize that minimalism is not about owning less, it's about needing less. And that's a form of power few people ever experience. Everything. One powerful mindset shift is to redefine what reward means. Most people spend money as a form of reward after a long day, a hard week, or a stressful event, everything. But real reward doesn't have to cost anything. It can be rest, time with loved ones, a walk in the evening, or even the pride of staying consistent with your goals, everything. When you start finding satisfaction in non-material rewards, you reduce the emotional pull of consumption. You train your brain to see joy beyond the transaction. Everything. Let's take a practical step. Create what I call a pause ritual. Before every non-essential purchase, pause for 24 hours. Everything. If you still want it after a day, truly want it, then buy it without guilt. But you'll be amazed how often the urge fades. Everything. That simple pause breaks the chain between impulse and regret. It helps you see that most desires are temporary. They pass, like waves, if you give them time. Everything. Another simple but profound technique is to connect every expense to your larger vision. Ask yourself, is this taking me closer to financial peace or pulling me further away? Everything. When you begin to view money as energy, something that flows toward your priorities, you naturally stop wasting it on what doesn't matter. Everything. You realize that every purchase is a vote for the life you want to live. Money, at its best, should serve your purpose, not your emotions. Yet, for most people, it's the opposite. Everything. They serve their emotions, and money becomes the tool of escape. But when you learn to sit with discomfort instead of spending through it, something remarkable happens. You grow. Everything. You develop emotional resilience. You start realizing that your feelings don't need to be fixed with a product. They need to be felt, understood, and allowed to pass. Everything. You begin to notice that happiness was never at the mall, on your doorstep in a delivery box, or hidden in your next upgrade. Everything. It was always in your ability to choose. To choose awareness over impulse, purpose over distraction, peace over temporary pleasure. Because in the end, everything. Saving money isn't about depriving yourself. It's about reclaiming your power. And that begins when you stop asking, can I afford this? And start asking, everything. Does this add real value to my life? When you spend with that level of honesty, you'll find that your money lasts longer, your mind feels lighter, everything. And your sense of fulfillment grows deeper. And that is the real psychology of spending. Understanding that money isn't just a number in your account, everything. It's a reflection of your awareness, your emotions, and your choices. Once you master that, you're no longer buying to fill a void. You're building a life that doesn't need filling, everything. There's a moment in everyone's financial journey when the struggle to save begins to feel like a fight against yourself. You try budgeting, cutting back, everything, forcing discipline. Yet somehow, the money slips through your fingers like water. The truth is, saving money doesn't fail because you lack willpower. Everything. It fails because you're trying to work against your own nature instead of aligning with it. Saving isn't about restriction. It's about rhythm. Everything. It's about designing your life so that saving becomes the easiest, most natural thing you do. Not another chore on your endless to-do list. Imagine this: you wake up, pour your coffee, everything, and check your account. Without lifting a finger, money has already been moved into your savings, automatically, quietly, like a loyal assistant doing its job while you sleep. Everything. That single shift from effort to automation can change everything, because true financial peace isn't born from constant control. Everything. It's born from systems that free you from the need for control. Most people treat saving like a temporary project. They cut back for a month, everything. Promise themselves they'll start fresh next payday, or try the latest budgeting app, everything. But long-term change doesn't come from sudden bursts of effort. It comes from building habits that stick, habits that run in the background of your life. Everything. The key is to stop relying on motivation and start relying on structure. Motivation fades, systems endure. Think about brushing your teeth, everything. You don't debate whether you should do it every morning. You just do. It's a habit so ingrained that it doesn't require effort or emotion. That's how saving should feel: automatic, everything, non-negotiable, integrated into your life like a quiet routine of self-respect. You're not punishing yourself by saving. You're protecting your future self, everything. The first step toward this shift is redefining what saving means to you. Many people hear the word and immediately think of loss. Giving something up, missing out, denying pleasure, everything. But saving isn't subtraction. It's redirection. You're not taking money away from joy. You're storing it for future freedom. Every dollar saved is a small vote for your peace of mind, everything. A quiet promise that your future will be easier, lighter, more secure. Let's get practical. The simplest and most effective way to start saving consistently is to automate it. Everything. Not next week, now. Choose an amount, even something small, and set it to transfer automatically every time you get paid. It could be $5.50, everything, or $500. The amount doesn't matter nearly as much as the consistency. Automation removes temptation. You can't spend what you don't see, everything. The money moves before emotion has a chance to interfere. I once spoke to a young woman who struggled with saving for years, everything. Every month she'd promised to save whatever was left after expenses, and every month there was nothing left. So we flipped the script, everything. She set up an automatic transfer of just $10 from each paycheck into a savings account. $10, less than the price of 2 coffees. She didn't notice it was gone, everything. But something shifted inside her. Each time she saw that growing balance, even if small, she felt a sense of quiet progress. Within a few months, she increased it to 20, then 50, everything. Within a year, she had over $1,000 saved, not because she became rich, but because she stopped waiting to feel ready, everything. She created a system that didn't depend on her willpower. That's what the saving shift is all about: removing friction. If your system requires constant effort, it's not sustainable, everything. If it feels like a daily battle, you'll lose eventually. So make saving invisible. Let it happen behind the scenes. The second key principle is to simplify your financial life, everything. Complexity is the enemy of consistency. If you're juggling multiple accounts, tracking endless expenses, or relying on a dozen budgeting tools, you're setting yourself up for burnout. Everything simplify to multiply. Choose one clear system that works and stick with it. For many people, that means separating money into 3 main accounts: spending, saving, and goals. Everything. Spending covers your bills and essentials. Saving holds your emergency fund. And goals are where you set aside money for things that matter: travel, education, a future business, everything, or even just peace of mind. When you separate your money this way, something powerful happens. You stop feeling guilty for spending because every dollar already has a purpose. Everything. You know what's for now and what's for later. That clarity brings calm. You no longer wonder, can I afford this? Because the system has already answered for you. Everything. There's a beautiful paradox here. The more you automate and simplify, the freer you become. You're not micromanaging your finances. You're leading them. Everything. You're giving your money direction instead of letting it drift wherever emotion or impulse takes it. Now, everything. Let's talk about alignment, the emotional side of saving that most people overlook. Because saving isn't just about numbers, it's about identity. Everything. Who are you becoming through this habit? What kind of life are you quietly building with every dollar you set aside? When you start to see saving not as deprivation but as self-respect, everything changes. You stop feeling like you're missing out and start realizing you're leveling up. Each time you choose to save instead of spend, you're telling yourself, I matter. Everything. My future matters. My peace matters. Think about the feeling of waking up one morning and realizing you have enough money saved to handle an emergency without panic. Everything. Or the quiet pride of paying for something you love, in full, without debt or guilt. That feeling isn't luck. It's the reward of tiny, consistent choices made over time. Everything. One powerful exercise is to name your savings goals emotionally, not just financially. Everything. Instead of emergency fund, call it peace fund. Instead of vacation savings, call it freedom trip. When your goals have emotional meaning, they pull you forward. Everything. You no longer save because you should. You save because it feels good, because it connects with who you want to be. Everything. Another trick is the automatic raise. Each time your income increases, whether from a raise, side hustle, or bonus, everything, immediately increase your automatic savings by a percentage before your lifestyle expands. Most people upgrade their spending the moment their paycheck grows, everything, trapping themselves in the same cycle at a higher level. But if you capture even a small part of that increase, say, everything, 20%, your future self will thank you 1,000 times over. You see, real financial progress isn't dramatic, it's quiet. Everything. It's built in the background of ordinary days. When you skip the unnecessary purchase, set up that auto, transfer everything, or decide to wait 24 hours before buying something you want. Those are the invisible victories that compound into freedom. Saving, at its core, is about peace. Everything. The peace of knowing you're prepared. The peace of realizing you don't have to panic every time life throws a curveball. The peace of being in control. Everything. Not because you micromanage every penny, but because your system protects you when you're not paying attention. There's a story I love about a man who, every time he got paid, everything would put a small amount of cash in an envelope labeled Future Me. He never missed a week. 10 years later, that habit, simple, boring, everything, and consistent, became the foundation for his first investment property. When someone asked how he did it, he smiled and said, "Everything. I just respected my future like I respect my present." That's alignment. That's what makes saving effortless. Everything. And maybe that's the shift you need to make right now. From guilt to gratitude, from effort to alignment. You don't need to be perfect with money. You just need to be intentional. Everything. Start small. Set up the system. Let time do the heavy lifting. Because one day, not far from now, everything. You'll look at your growing savings and feel something new. Not excitement or pride alone, but peace. The kind of peace that comes when your actions finally match your values. Everything. The kind of peace that says, quietly and confidently, "I'm in control." There's a quiet truth most people overlook. The more complicated your financial life becomes, everything, the harder it is to move forward. Complexity feels productive. More accounts, more apps, more options. But in reality, it creates confusion, stress, and paralysis. Everything. When everything is everywhere, you lose sight of what truly matters. Simplifying your finances is not about doing less. It's about doing what counts with clarity and confidence. Everything. Picture this. You wake up one morning, and before you've even brushed your teeth, your phone pings with a flood of notifications. Your credit card balance, your bank app reminder, everything. Your payment due, email, your investment app update, and a tempting sale alert from your favorite store. All these tiny moments demand attention, but each one chips away at your focus. Everything. You're reacting to money instead of directing it. It's not that you're bad with money. It's that your financial life has become cluttered. Everything. Think about it like a room you've lived in for years without cleaning properly. You don't notice the pile of receipts on the desk, the extra credit card you barely use, everything, or the subscription you forgot to cancel. But the weight of all those small things adds up, quietly. You feel it every time you check your account, every time you try to plan, everything. It's not just financial clutter, it's mental clutter. And like any kind of clutter, the cure is simplification. Simplifying your financial life begins with awareness. Sit down, everything. Open your notebook or phone and list every account you currently use. Bank accounts, credit cards, loans, subscriptions, investments, digital wallets, and even those buy now, everything, pay later, platforms that seem harmless. When people actually do this exercise, they're often shocked. Everything. What they thought was a simple setup turns out to be a web of overlapping services and forgotten obligations. One account for bills, another for savings, a third for groceries, everything. A PayPal for side gigs, a Venmo for friends, and maybe 2 or 3 credit cards, all silently creating confusion. Now imagine narrowing that list down to the essentials. Everything. One primary checking account, one savings account, one credit card that you pay off monthly, maybe a single investment platform you actually understand. Suddenly, the noise fades. Everything. You're no longer juggling, you're steering. You know exactly where your money is, where it's going, and how it's growing. That's the magic of simplicity. Everything. It gives you back control. But simplifying isn't just about reducing accounts. It's about redefining your relationship with money itself. Everything. Many of us have been conditioned to equate more with better. More income, more features, more apps, more tools. Yet when it comes to personal finance, everything, more, often becomes the very reason we feel stuck. The wealthy don't chase complexity, they chase clarity. Everything. They build systems that work quietly in the background so their energy can focus on what matters most, their goals. Consider someone like Sarah. Everything. She's a graphic designer who earns well but always feels financially drained. She has her paycheck going into one account, but her subscriptions come out of another. Everything. She's using multiple cards to collect reward points, paying small loans on 2 different platforms, and trying to track everything through spreadsheets. At the end of the month, everything. She's exhausted, not broke, but burned out. Her financial system was never designed, it just evolved, piece by piece. Then one day, she decides she's had enough. Everything. She closes the old accounts, consolidates everything into one main hub, and sets up automatic transfers, a fixed amount to savings every month, bills from one card. Everything, and a small budget for personal spending. Within weeks, she notices something incredible. She's saving more and worrying less. Nothing about her income changed. Everything, but the simplicity created flow. She no longer needs to try to manage her money. The system does it for her. Simplicity frees your mind. Everything. It allows you to focus on what really drives results, the 20% of actions that create 80% of your financial progress. Paying your bills on time, automating your savings, everything. Tracking your spending weekly, and reviewing your goals monthly. That's it. Those small actions, repeated consistently, outperform every complicated budgeting trick you'll ever try. Everything. Let's talk about the emotional side for a moment. Money clutter is emotional clutter. Every extra account or payment you have to remember creates a subtle undercurrent of anxiety. Everything. You might not notice it day to day, but it's there. A low hum of something I should probably fix. When you simplify, you quiet that noise. Everything. You stop living in constant reaction mode and start moving with intention. And that emotional shift is where true transformation begins. Everything. There's a reason minimalism has become a movement, not just for homes, but for minds. When you declutter your environment, you breathe easier. When you declutter your finances, everything, you think clearer. The goal isn't to strip everything away, it's to remove what distracts you from what matters. You don't need 5 budgeting apps, you need one that works. Everything. You don't need to check the stock market every morning. You need a long-term plan and the discipline to stick with it. A simple rule to live by: if it doesn't serve your financial peace, everything. It doesn't deserve your attention. That means canceling unused subscriptions, merging similar accounts, and automating payments so you're not constantly remembering deadlines. Everything. Every small simplification creates mental space, and in that space, clarity grows. Another powerful way to simplify is to set clear boundaries for your money. Everything. Create categories that reflect your life: essentials, savings, and freedom spending. Essentials are your bills, groceries, transportation. The necessities. Everything. Savings is your future self, emergency fund, goals, investments. Freedom spending is guilt-free, the coffee, the weekend treat, the small joys. That's it. 3 categories. Everything. The rest is noise. When you align your money this way, decisions become effortless. You don't need to agonize over whether you can afford something. You'll know. Now, everything. Let's address one of the biggest traps of modern money management: the illusion of progress through activity. Many people feel productive when they're checking apps, moving funds, everything, or trying new budgeting tools. But if your system requires constant attention, it's not serving you, it's using you. True progress happens when your financial system becomes boring. Everything. When the right things happen automatically without emotional effort. Think of your money like a river. If it's scattered in many directions, it loses power. Everything. But when you channel it through a clear, steady stream, it gains force and momentum. Simplifying your financial life is like building that stream, guiding your resources in one direction. Everything. Toward growth and freedom. And yes, it can feel uncomfortable at first. Letting go of complexity feels like losing control, even though it's the opposite. The truth is, everything. People cling to complicated systems because it gives them the illusion of mastery. I'm managing everything. But real mastery is invisible. It's calm, consistent, everything, and almost effortless. It's the quiet confidence of knowing your finances are organized, automated, and aligned with your purpose. So how do you start? Practically. Everything. Begin with a clean slate mindset. Set aside one weekend to do a financial reset. Gather every account statement, card, and app. Review what you use, what you don't, everything, and what feels overwhelming. Then cut. Delete the accounts you don't need. Combine the ones you do. Simplify payment dates so everything aligns. Maybe all bills on the same week. Everything. All transfers on payday. Set automatic deposits into savings and stop manually moving money around every few days. The less you touch your system, the smoother it will run. Everything. And while you're simplifying, remember, your time is just as valuable as your money. Every minute spent tracking unnecessary details is a minute not spent living. Everything. The ultimate goal is not to obsess over money, but to create a system so clear and simple that you rarely have to think about it. When you walk into a tidy room, you instantly feel lighter. Everything. You breathe deeper. You think better. The same happens when your finances are tidy. You don't dread checking your balance. You feel calm, confident, and capable. Everything. You know exactly where you stand. You know where you're going. And perhaps most importantly, you know you're in control. Simplicity is not a downgrade. It's an upgrade in disguise. Everything. It's not about having less. It's about having space for what matters more. When you remove the clutter from your financial life, you make room for focus, growth, and peace. Everything. And in that stillness, you finally begin to multiply. Not just your money, but your freedom, your confidence, and your life itself. For most of your life, everything, you've probably been told that saving money is the responsible thing to do. Save for a rainy day, they say. Put something aside. And while that's good advice, everything, it's incomplete. Because saving alone won't build freedom. It won't create opportunity. It won't give you that deep, quiet confidence of knowing you're financially unshakable. Everything. Saving is the foundation, but the real transformation begins when you shift from saving to growing. That shift, that quiet mental pivot, is what we call the wealth mindset. Everything. Think about it like this: money is energy. It's not meant to sit still. It's meant to flow, to circulate, to move through creation and exchange. When you hoard it out of fear, everything, it stagnates. But when you use it with intention, to learn, to invest, to build, it expands. The wealthy understand this. They see money not as something to protect, everything, but as something to direct. Every dollar has a purpose, a job, a mission. Now, let's be honest. Most of us were not raised with that mindset. Everything. Many of us grew up hearing things like, money doesn't grow on trees, or you have to work hard for every penny. And yes, discipline and effort matter. Everything. But if you cling too tightly to that belief, you start seeing money as scarce, fragile, and difficult to come by. You operate from fear. Fear of losing, fear of spending, fear of risk. Everything, by nature, keeps you small. Imagine two people, Sarah and James. Sarah earns an average income, works hard, and saves diligently every month. Everything. She puts a small portion of her paycheck into her savings account. She's proud of that, and she should be. But years pass, and she realizes her money hasn't really grown. Everything. Inflation eats a little of it each year. Unexpected expenses take chunks out of it. She's stable, but not free. James, on the other hand, also saves, but with a purpose. Everything. He saves to deploy. He reads about investing, starts small, and learns from his mistakes. He buys books instead of gadgets, takes online courses instead of weekend trips. Everything. He sees each dollar as a seed, something that, if planted wisely, will multiply over time. Everything. The same amount of money that Sarah kept locked away begins to grow for James. Through compound interest, through new skills, through opportunities he could now afford to take. Everything. The difference between them isn't intelligence or luck, it's mindset. Sarah's goal was to keep her money. James's goal was to grow it. The truth is, money grows when you grow. Everything. Your bank balance is often a mirror of your beliefs, your discipline, your confidence. People who fear money never seem to have enough of it. People who respect money learn about it, everything, and use it purposefully. They attract more because they've built the habits and mindset that align with abundance. But let's talk about what this looks like in practical terms. Everything. You don't need to become a financial expert overnight. You don't even need a huge income to start thinking like an investor. Everything. The wealth mindset begins with awareness, understanding that every dollar you earn has potential. When you buy something, ask yourself, does this purchase create value, or just consume it? Everything. When you save, ask, what am I saving for? What's the plan? What's the purpose? A savings account should be a launch pad, not a parking lot. Everything. You can use it to build an emergency fund. Essential, yes. But after that, the question becomes, how can my money start working for me? Everything. That could mean investing in low-cost index funds, learning a high-income skill, or even starting a side business that grows over time. The point isn't to chase risky ventures. Everything. It's to learn how to make your money move in alignment with your goals. Everything. There's a quiet joy that comes with that awareness. The moment you realize you're no longer just a consumer in the economy, you're a participant. You're part of creation, everything. Every wise financial move you make, no matter how small, sends a signal to your future self: I'm building something lasting. Now, let's go deeper into the emotional side, everything. Because wealth isn't just numbers, it's psychology. Many people secretly feel guilty about wanting more money. They associate wealth with greed, success with selfishness, everything. But here's the truth: money doesn't change who you are. It amplifies you. If you're kind, generous, and grounded, more money allows you to express that on a bigger scale, everything. If you're anxious and impulsive, more money will highlight that too. That's why mindset matters so deeply. Everything. True wealth begins with internal abundance. The belief that there's enough for everyone, that opportunity is not a zero-sum game. When you operate from abundance, everything, you no longer chase every trend or panic when the market dips. You understand cycles. You think long-term. You play the game differently. Everything. There's a story about a man who planted a tree in his backyard. Every day, he watered it, cared for it, but for years it barely grew. Frustrated, he thought of cutting it down. Everything. Then one year, almost overnight, it shot up, tall, strong, unshakable. What he didn't realize was that during all those years, the tree had been building its roots, deep, unseen, everything, preparing for its season of growth. Your wealth journey is the same. You might not see immediate results when you start budgeting, saving, or investing. You might feel impatient, everything. But beneath the surface, your financial roots are growing: discipline, knowledge, patience, control. And when the right opportunity comes, you'll be ready. Everything. That's what separates the average saver from the wealth builder: preparation. Let's bring this to something deeply practical. Start by reframing your view of money. Everything. Stop saying, "I can't afford it." Start asking, "How can I afford it?" That question shifts your brain from limitation to creativity. Everything. When you say, "I can't," your mind shuts down. When you ask, "How can I?" your mind starts to look for solutions, ways to earn, save, or create. Everything. That small linguistic change is powerful. Next, treat learning about money as a lifelong habit. Read books, listen to podcasts, follow people who teach wealth with integrity. Everything. The more familiar you become with money, the less intimidating it feels. You stop seeing it as a mystery and start seeing it as a skill, something you can master with time and effort. Everything. And most importantly, learn to delay gratification. The wealthiest people aren't the ones who never spend, they're the ones who know when to spend. They buy assets before luxuries. They invest in what grows before indulging in what fades. Everything. There's deep satisfaction in that discipline, in knowing that your future self will thank you for what your present self resisted. Sometimes, people mistake frugality for scarcity. Everything. But they're not the same. Scarcity says, "I'll never have enough." Frugality says, "I already have enough. I just choose wisely." That distinction is powerful. Everything. When you act from scarcity, you tighten up, panic, and cling. When you act from wisdom, you save with peace, invest with confidence, and spend with joy. Everything. The wealth mindset is not about chasing millions. It's about creating a life where money supports your dreams instead of controlling them. Maybe for you, that dream is owning a home. Everything. Maybe it's traveling the world, starting a business, or simply never stressing about bills again. Whatever it is, that dream deserves structure, a plan. Every time you set aside money, everything, invest in your growth or refuse an impulse buy, you're not missing out. You're casting a vote for the life you truly want. You're telling the universe, "I'm ready for more." Everything. And I know how to handle it. And here's something remarkable. Once you begin to think this way, you start noticing opportunities that were always there. Everything. Because wealth isn't about luck. It's about awareness. It's seeing the doors others overlook because they're too busy reacting to every short-term temptation. Everything. The wealth mindset keeps your eyes open for the long game. So, as you continue your journey, remember this: saving is safety, but growth is freedom. Everything. Don't let fear hold you in the safety zone forever. Learn, prepare, and when the time feels right, let your money move. Let it work, let it grow, let it expand alongside you. Everything. Because the moment you stop working for money and start letting money work with you, that's when you truly step into abundance.